大家好，我们现在再讲一下 Cacc 这家公司。这家公司不太有名，但它也蛮有意思的，尤其它有非常大的股票回购的力度。我们先来听一下它的电话会议，这个会议非常短。然后呢，我会讲一下我对它的主要的评价。我在会员的网盘上已经更新了未来5年对这家公司股价的预期，大家有兴趣可以去看一下。那么现在开始听它电话会议的内容。
Our GAAP and adjusted for the quarter include the decrease in forecasted collection rates, decreased forecasted net cash flows by $69 million, or 0.7%, compared to a decrease in forecasted collection rates during the third quarter of 2020. Decreased forecasted net cash flows by $87 million, or 0.9%. Forecasted profitability for consumer loans assigned in 2020 through 2022 that was lower than our estimates of September 30th, 2022, due to a decline in forecasted collection rates since the quarter of 2022. Slower forecast net cash flow timing during 2023, primarily as a result of a decrease in consumer loan prepayments below average levels. Unit and dollar volumes 13% and 10.5% respectively as compared to the third quarter of 2022. The average balance of our loan portfolio on a GAAP and adjusted basis increased 5.9% and 10.6% respectively as compared to the third quarter of 2022. An increase in the initial spread on consumer loan assignments to 21.4% compared to 20.2% on consumer loans assigned in the third quarter of 2022. An increase in our average cost of debt was primarily a result of higher interest rates on recently or extended secured financing and the repayment of older secured financings with lower interest rates. Adjusted net income decreased 22% from the third quarter of 2022, under $40 million. Adjusted earnings per share decreased 20% from the third quarter of 2022, $10.70. Ken Booth, our Chief Executive Officer, Jay Martin, our Senior Vice President, Finance and Accounting, and I will take your questions.
Thank you. As a reminder, to ask a question, press star 11 on your telephone and wait for your name to be announced. For all your question, please press star 11 again, and please stand by while we compile our Q&A roster. One moment for our first question. Our first question comes from John Rowan of Janney Montgomery Scott.
Good afternoon.
Hey, John.
So, when I think back, overall long time frame and looking at the company, and every cycle, that we've seen, whether it was a great financial crisis or COVID, it was roughly about 3/4 of charges that you took to kind of right-size the forecasted collections, and then, obviously, then after that, those forecast revisions went away. We're at 6 quarters now in a row of forecasted collection revisions on the downside. Is there something different about this environment that makes it more difficult to get that number right? Is it still COVID reverberations? Is it CECL, or is it core prices? I'm just trying to figure out, why we're so much longer into this cycle and we're still seeing these negative charges. Thank you.
It doesn't have anything to do with CECL. That's just accounting. In terms of estimating forecasted collection rates, don't have a perfect reason for as to why it's taken longer for the 22 vintage in particular to settle in. Those loans were originated at a pretty unique time, very competitive in the industry, at very elevated used car prices, and we've had the impact of inflation, which is something that we never previously had to deal with. So that's really about the best answer I can give you.
Okay, and then just obviously I saw the Q came out, and it doesn't seem like there's any material disclosures regarding the the CFPB and New York AG suit, but it does say that there's an update that has to be given on November 3rd. Is there anything you can tell us about what that update would include, or is that a possible time frame in which this case would move forward again? Because obviously it's still currently stayed, so I just want to understand what happens on November 3rd. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think that anything's really going to happen with the case until CFP or the Supreme Court rules on the constitutionality of the CFPB. The court has granted a motion to stay on our case pending that decision. And I don't know exactly what we discussed in November with the court, but the court has granted a motion to stay pending the Supreme Court's decision.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. One moment for our next question. And our next question comes from John Hecht of Jefferies.
Hey guys, afternoon. My question. I guess my question's a little bit related to John's prior question, the longer cycle. In prior cycles, guys have kind of emerged as price maker as other competitors have fallen back. But if you spreads, now they're still kind of below years ago. I'm wondering kind of how would you describe the competitive market and something that you sure or any indications that may be becoming more favorable because we've gone through such a tough cycle.
We think the competitive environment is relatively favorable. Below portfolio and grew originations and rates that we're happy with. Volume through the first 28 days of October is up materially. So I think the competitive environment is favorable. The October volume would indicate that it's even more favorable recently. It's certainly not a situation like that exists in the credit crisis. The industry really didn't have access to capital for a period of time. But I think that, the competitive environment is certainly better than it was a year ago. And, don't know how that's going to play out in the future, but pleased with how it's going today.
And then, I guess, maybe comment on, obviously you're writing down the expected cash flow that kind of hurts over the past few quarters and that. Maybe can the credit environment, that's just been exhausted by inflation, or is it because is it more tied to asset value market? How do you describe the credit?
I think it's a combination of several factors, probably the mentioned asset values and inflation would be the two most material contributors.
Okay, thanks very much, guys.
Thank you. And as a reminder, to ask a question, please press star 11 on your telephone and wait for your name to be announced. To withdraw your question, please press star 11 again. One moment for our next question. And our next question comes from Robert Wildhack of Autonomous Research.
Hi guys, just to follow up on the last point there, why do you think the competitive, or what's the reason behind the improvement in the competitive landscape? Is that structural? In other words, competitors going out of business, or is that temporary, i.e. some just pulling back for a bit?
There have been some companies that have gone out of business or exited the market, but they haven't been huge participants in used vehicle financing to subprime consumers. So I think it's just more a function of other industry participants having to price their loans differently due to the increase in interest rates. I think people are also probably reacting to softness in credit performance.
Okay. And then as it relates to the downward revisions in forecasted collections, have you adjusted your approval rate at all in the recent quarters? And then did you change your approval rate at all in October?
We haven't seen a material, we approve everyone. So we haven't seen a change in our approval policies. And we haven't made any meaningful changes in policy or price in October.
Okay, no change in October.
No material changes, no.
Okay. Thanks.
With no further questions in the queue, I would like to turn the conference back over to Mr. Busk for any additional or closing remarks.
I'd like to thank everyone for their support and for joining us on our conference call today. If you have any additional follow-up questions, please direct them to our investor relations mailbox at ir@creditacceptance.com. Look forward to talking to you again next quarter. Thank you.
这是他的电话会议啊，他的电话会议非常短啊，因为他的问题呢相对也比较清楚，主要就是说这个季度呢利润有比较大的下滑，相比去年同期。这个主要当然是两方面，一方面是它的资金成本确实上升了，因为它不是银行，所以没有储户的存款，它的资金来源主要是借贷。现在利率上升导致了资金成本自然也就有所上升，这是一方面。另一方面就是坏账的预期也持续的上涨。那很多问题呢就集中在第二部分，就是说为什么坏账预期好像已经连续调整了几个月仍然还在变坏。因为这家公司之前也经过比如说像是2008年那种比较深重的经济危机，但即便是那个时候基本上就可以在3个季度之内把坏账调整到一个正确的水平，然后之后坏账就不再继续增加了。但这次的危机呢非常不一样，管理层已经连续6个月在不停的调整坏账预期，到现在好像还没有真正调整到比较合适的水平。所以呢分析师就非常奇怪，到底这一次有什么不一样？管理层的解释就是现在美国处在一个非常奇怪的时期，因为他们之前发放的这些二手车的贷款，第一个呢整段时间通胀比较高，第二个呢二手车的贷款之前有很高的上涨，现在呢有大幅的下降，所以呢通胀加上它这个贷款汽车的本身的价值的剧烈变化，让他这6个月好像一直没有把握到正确的坏账水平应该放在什么地方。但是呢也不全是坏消息，如果假定这家公司现在的坏账水平已经是接近比较真实的水平，这家公司可能会利润下降，但不至于亏损，更不会破产。那么主要未来就是看它能不能在市场上取得更高的市场份额，关键就在于说它现在是不是发放的贷款数量和金额是同比上升的，这个确实如此。他就讲说3季度不管数量和金额都比去年同期有超过 10% 的提升，而且据管理层讲4季度现在看来的10月份这个增长好像比3季度还要更强。也就是说管理层觉得现在的市场对它相对比较有利，它可以拿到比较好的市场份额，它的未来还是有比较好的预期的，因此呢才会在贷款的数量和金额上显得更为的放松，显得更为对未来有信心。所以呢这是 Cacc 的情况。如同我讲的，会员们可以看一下我网盘上的对这家公司未来5年的股价的估计，有问题请留言，我会在周末的直播中尽量跟大家解释。谢谢大家，视频不是投资建议，谢谢，再见。